As you see, Meg Ansara and Rick Davis are here with me in Washington. Meg is a Democratic strategist and founding partner at 270 Strategies. Rick is a Republican strategist and was campaign manager for Senator John McCain's 2008 presidential run. Welcome to you both. They've pledged to me to keep it civil. We'll see if you stick to that promise. Okay, this is a mess for the White House, this issue of whether or not it's being investigated, President Trump specifically, and in many ways, this is a self-inflicted wound opened by the president on Saturday with his early morning tweets in Mar-a-Lago. I was there covering it. You get these notes from the president, and we all react and respond because he is the commander-in-chief. Rick, to you, is there anything the White House can do to make this go away? Because this issue, these questions of Russian interference linger.
Well, I think, as your correspondent noted, a lot of the pendulum has swung over to Congress. Lindsey Graham's asking the FBI to sort of give him guidance as a member of the Judiciary Committee, what they have been doing, if anything. They may have not have been doing anything. But I do think the onus is a little bit on the White House and Donald Trump to come up with some rationale as to why he made the charge to begin with. I mean, is there evidence that there was a wiretap? Who told him that there was a wiretap? If he got it from Breitbart and that's the rationale, then it's certainly okay to say so. At least there's a reason why, right? You can then debate whether or not you think the article in Breitbart was accurate or not, but that's a different story. So
but this gets to the question of a self-inflicted wound, because there are many times when if the administration would just answer a question clearly and not have to change, like Sean Spicer has done a few days in a row now, what their response is to if they know if they're even being investigated, leads to more questions. So how much of this do you think does the White House shoulder as far as blame?
Well, look, I mean, it all depends upon the outcome, right? I mean, if there is indeed a surveillance in place and there was a legal or illegal, then it's not like a misspeak or a, president saying something that wasn't accurate. It may be true. We just don't know. I think that's why everybody sort of would like to know, does he know something we don't know? And if he does, can he lay that out for the American public? Because it's not even so much, forget Congress for a second. I mean, there have been charges against a former president that are pretty steep. Not many people claim that the former president was listening in on him. We haven't heard that since Nixon in '72. So, and it was accurate then. It may be accurate now. Who knows? But at least we could clear up some of the confusion within the White House as to who knows what. Donald Trump clearly was acting on something he knew. What was that? Who told it to him? Where did he get it from? And then we can judge for ourselves whether we think that has any veracity.
And Meg, what have you made of the White House response to what has emerged as a crisis? They'd rather talk about healthcare legislation they're pushing through, some of the president's big ticket items he wants as far as his agenda, defense spending increases. This detracts from all of that and gives Democrats, to be fair, something to stick to and hark on.
No, I definitely agree. It's a major problem. An emotional tweet was sent this past weekend without evidence to back it up. It doesn't seem like the right hand is talking to the left hand, in terms of several members of the administration either saying confusing things or contradictory things, and there remains to be seen evidence, just as Rick said. And so, I think everything that Rick covered is very rational. I think there's another question here, which is just the president's understanding of how these wiretaps work in the first place. It's not able to have a president just, make this happen. And so in addition to the disorganization, the dysfunction, as well as the lack of proof, there's also some real questions around understanding the process and the law that are deeply troubling.
And what about Press Secretary Sean Spicer's performance in this very challenging job, interpreting what the president says on his personal Twitter account, but also trying to formulate policy? And he struggled with Margaret Brennan this week to answer her question clearly without sticking himself in the mud. What do you make of how he's handled this?
To be honest, I'm not sure I understand his strategy, right? It doesn't look like he's coordinated or understands, and instead, there's a stalemate that just brings on more questions and more skepticism. So I'm not sure what he's going for, but it's not working.
Okay. I would say it wouldn't be the first time a press secretary, regardless of administration, has avoided speaking to the president directly to not have the information that he otherwise would have to divulge to the press. This is sort of a standard operating procedure tactic with the media, and so I don't blame Spicer for wanting to not know what the president knows. It's really incumbent upon the president to sort of weigh in on this. He's the one who put it into motion. I would say, too, on the other hand, Democrats don't want to be talking about this. They want to be talking about health care. I mean, when I talk to Democrats on Capitol Hill, they want to fight the ACA fight. They want to fight and protect Obamacare. They don't want to be talking about whether or not, you know, President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower. I mean, there's no electoral significance to that. It's fun, you know. It's kind of a parlor game. Everybody, you know, gets to walk around until they remove one chair, and then someone sits down and no one gets the chair. But it doesn't have any saliency, you know, on a political issue. And
well, we'll come back.
You have the biggest week with the hallmark piece of legislation being, you know, basically scuttled on the House, and we're talking about wiretaps.
Well, we will come back and talk a bit more in depth about the healthcare fight. First, a few other headlines out of Washington today. We are now seeing the State Department, as far as the foreign policy front, really being minimized as far as its significance. No daily press briefings, the possibility that Rex Tillerson will go on an Asia trip, but maybe the press corps will not go with him. That's unprecedented. The possibility that these agencies could see funding get shut, foreign aid programs being lost to help pay for an increase in defense spending. What do you make of the signal being sent with these early moves on the State Department front?
Well, I think there's no question that the White House budget sort of puts more emphasis on capacity building at the Defense Department than on soft power. And there's an active debate within the Republican Party on whether that's a good idea or not. You know, we've heard very articulate arguments by General Mattis in the past, Secretary of Defense, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, both on the Armed Services Committee, who have basically said repeatedly, for every dollar you take out of soft power, you got to buy, you know, new bullets with another dollar, because that's the trade-off. You're exiting locations that are more likely to become violent by not having education, cultural programs in place. So I think we're early in that process. It's not unusual to have a budget debate even within the party that has written the budget. Very few White House budgets ever get all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol without already be saying they're dead on arrival, regardless of whose party.
But these early signs are stark and they are clear. I mean, Meg, for you, is it concerning to see that perhaps this administration will pull back from its presence on the international stage?
No, I think it's very concerning, and is going to have, you know, reverberations for our national security and our economy, and I think it's tremendously concerning. Coupled with, I think, so much that of what the administration is doing right now is just feels shrouded in secrecy, which just raises even more questions about motive and sort of what's the end game here.